Welcome to Funding Billions with Fenoglio. This is our fourth interview this year. My guest today is Michael Gallagher. Michael is based out of the Morgan Hill branch, which is best known as Silicon Valley. Close to city, San Francisco, if you guys don't know where that is. Welcome today, Michael, to our fourth interview. I'm so pumped to have you on here. Your story is very interesting, and I think a lot of FAM loan officers are going to relate to you, and then the ones coming into the business are really going to gravitate to your story. But before I kick it off and let you go, let's start a little bit. So you joined with Finance America August 2018. When you joined, you funded 2 loans for $1 million. I know it was at the end of the year there. And then in 2019, you closed 57 loans for 31 million. And then fast forward to last year, 118 loans for 63 million. And I know you were kind of getting back into the industry. So why don't you start off, give us a little bit of background about you, a little bit of a past, and how you quadrupled your business in like 2 years.
Cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. First of all, you can call me Mike.
Okay, Mike.
The only person that calls me Michael anymore is my mom. So no, I appreciate you having me on board. I know there's a lot of folks ahead of me on the leaderboard, so I'm honored that you'd want to have a chat. So yeah, I've been licensed since 2001. I've had a run of managing offices, having teams under me. I ran through a few years where we had several unexpected mergers that kind of threw us off course. So I bounced around a little bit until we landed on our feet with FAM in 2018. And at that point, I was kind of done with managing. It was time to kind of get serious about originating. And so I really focused solely on what I was going to do, kind of shedding everything aside as far as trying to build teams and that sort of thing, and just focused on personal origination.
And so how did that start? Like, give me step one. You said, hey, look, I'm going to go after realtors, builders, investors. What was step one?
Well, it was, first of all, it was a little bit of a mindset change. Okay. I'm not 32 anymore. I figured, if I look back 20 years, I was thinking at this point, I might be close to retirement. I had to humble myself a little bit to get back in the saddle and realize that I was going to have to pick up the phone every day. I was going to have to do, kind of the hard day-to-day combat that, is kind of what it takes to get going. So first thing I did is I hired a coach.
Okay.
And it was interesting because I did have a book of realtors that I had been calling on for years. And the first thing she said was, let's show me who you're calling on. And I had a list of maybe 150 realtors that I had at least met at some point over the past 10 years, either from an open house or an in-house gig we had for a few years or whatever. And I was, my methodology was pretty much just a shotgun approach. And I was thinking at the time, I got to turn this list of 150 realtors into 300. And that was the strategy, albeit a flawed strategy. And so, the first thing my coach, sat down and she said, listen, this is, you're chasing way too many people. Let's pare this down. Let's look at this list. Who in the last 2 years have you actually closed a transaction with? Went through that list. Everyone else was gone. We're going to take these people, and instead of trying to triple the amount of realtors you're calling on, let's take the people that you already have a relationship with and start to go deep. And so that was, for me, it was very much a mindset change because I'd kind of compartmentalized business and friends, and I really didn't view my realtors and referral partners as people that I intended to become deep friends with. And my coach really got me thinking differently about that. And once I really kind of changed my perception of these agents that I was courting, for lack of a better word, and changing how I'm approaching them and really trying to delve deeper, things changed pretty much instantly.
So so when you say go deeper, are you talking about building a friend relationship with them and more of like caring about them? Is that like the deeper you're talking about?
That's it. And, you know,
Sounds it.
and I'm
Okay.
sure there's folks listening, will go, you know, of course. And I think there's obviously there's people that comes very naturally to.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't a natural part of how I operated in business. And it's not because I wasn't friendly or, you know, I really didn't want to. For some reason in my mind, it wasn't appropriate. It wasn't, I think I just was thinking, hey, this is my business world. This is my friend world. And I'm, you know, if I can just prove to these agents that I'm the smartest guy in the room, that I understand the bond market, that we've got the best process and pricing, and my team is awesome, that's all I need to do for the business to start rolling in. And that was a flawed idea because it just wasn't working. And it wasn't until I really start, you know, my coach asked me questions. She goes, okay, you have this list of these agents that you've closed deals with in the last 2 years. Okay, so let's start at the top. Joe Smith. You know, what's his wife's name? I don't know. Is he married? I think so. Does he have any hobbies? I don't know. Yeah, I really knew nothing personally about a lot of, well, pretty much everyone on the list. So it was humbling. And it was, you know, at first I really had to kind of buy into it. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. And once I kind of got into that, you know, I keep using the word mindset, but once I got into that mindset that I'm going to really start taking a vested interest, and not as a sales strategy, but really, you know, let's make an honest attempt to become true friends with these folks, learn about what's going on in their life, learn about what's important, and develop a relationship that, you know, not for the sole purpose of getting a referral, but because it's the right thing to do. And in this business that we're in, it's actually appropriate to, you know, to become personal friends with your referral partners. And so, yeah, for me, that was kind of the beginning.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a similar story. I have two of my very, very good friends that were realtors that I received business from, and we worked together. We got relationships, started hanging out, and that wasn't normal for me. I didn't do that. I've always said business life, personal life, and I've always kept it separate. And I kind of do still today, but the two that are very closest, we became really great. They're both lenders now. One was a realtor for 20 years, gave it all up, and now he's a lender. And the other one works in our company and runs a branch. And he was in lending, went into real estate. We worked together a couple of times, got back into lending, worked with me for years. And I just started laughing, going, man, once I get them in my ecosystem, I think I turn them into loan officers. I better not get them that close.
That's right. That's right. You're converting people.
Yeah, I don't.
Obviously,
no, I need you back in the field selling for me.
That's right.
So moving on, what does your team look like? You know,
Yeah.
doing 118 loans. I mean, do you have your own assistant, processor? What's that look like?
Yeah. So I'm sharing a processor, but I probably, I'm capitalizing the lion's share of her business. I do have an LOA that I hired 9 years ago. At the time I was kind of doing, the 2 to 3 to 4 loans a month. I knew I needed help. I was just kind of stuck in that rut of the 2 to 3, and bringing her on board was great. We got to, it took some time to, kind of get some momentum. She's still with me. So I've got a full-time LOA. Last year I hired a part-time, a 20-hour, kind of new in the business, kind of help with pre-quals and scrubbing some new deals. And then I just hired another, just a couple of weeks ago, got another team member, also part-time. So all total, we've got, I've got, the equivalent of 2 full-time people helping me right now. So the team is good. I've got a great crew. I'm super, super lucky. And I think, the 2 part-timers, I mean, my goal is to get them both full-time and just kind of keep the momentum.
Perfect. That does lead into it. What is your goal this year? What are you looking unit wise to hit?
So the goal this year is 140 units. It's not a huge stretch, but it's like when I say goal, it's anything short of this is going to be disappointing. So that would put me right at 72 million in production. I think it's a realistic goal, and maybe it's not a big enough stretch. But that's kind of when I say goal, that's the minimum. If I don't hit that, it's going to be a disappointing year. So
I like your goal. A lot of loan officers, when they hit a number, then they come back and go, I want to double it. I want to triple it. And they're setting themselves up to fail. That doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Not like you go from 40 to 80 to 80 to 160. You gotta slowly make moves to get yourself keep continuing to climb.
I agree. And you want to stay motivated. If you're in month 4 and you're already way off pace, that can be defeating. So, I'm setting what I think are kind of realistic targets, and we're going after it. So,
yeah. So purchase business, where does it come from? Is it 100% realtor driven? Do you get any business from other sources? Let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. So the purchase, I would say it's probably, I don't have an exact number, but I'm going to say it's 80% coming from realtors, maybe even a little more, a handful of past clients. I do have one financial planner that maybe will send me a couple a year, and an estate planning attorney that I usually get 2 or 3 from. But the lion's share definitely is coming from realtors.
So let's talk about the financial planner. How deep of a relationship have you gone with that person?
Well, it was kind of the, similar deal. I mean, 3 years ago, I went on this, crazy expedition of reaching out to, I've got in LinkedIn, I must have like 1,800 financial planners. And it was kind of the same mindset. If I reach out to enough, I send out my message, they're just gonna, come flooding in, and it really didn't work at all. So I've pared it down to a very small group, and really now it's just kind of a handful. And I'm doing kind of the same thing. I whittled that group down to people that I just kind of connected with initially, really tried earnestly to send them some referrals. So I got into the habit of asking those questions during my pre-qual, just so I could start showing these other financial planners that I was thinking about them. Even if it wasn't a good fit, at least they knew, hey, I was thinking about them. And that was kind of the beginning of the relationship. And so now we kind of, the nice thing with financial planners is, they're smart, they get business. You're either going to connect or you're not, but they're very business minded. They're intelligent. They kind of understand our business. So it's just a matter of, and you don't need many. I've come to realize you don't need many for that sector of the referral business to kind of take out. I think I've just really kind of begun that.
Yeah. So I have one. He's the biggest one in the city of Huntington Beach. We actually worked out at the same gym together, worked out like in a class, and we became friends over 3 years. I literally, as I've been acquired. So I have some 401ks and IRAs laying around from previous companies. I went, met with them and said, here you go, knock yourself out. Tell me what the strategy is. And it wasn't really to get business from him. I just was like, hey, you're the number one guy. Everyone knows you and works with you. Here's mine. Here's my goals. Here's my life. And then we started becoming better friends. And then he started giving me shots at deals. And I'll tell you this, I did 46 transactions last year from him.
No kidding. 46. Wow.
Blew away any realtor referral, anything. And obviously, because rates were super low and he's very invested with his clients, he knows exactly what interest rate they have. And the big thing for him is, they go into these Wells Fargo's and B of A's and they come back and say, hey, look, move over 250, move over 500,000. And, he's like, he doesn't want that. So he comes to me going, Chris, what can you do? And look, some of those times I can't match it, right? We're not there. However, he sells it for me. And I'll give you a great example. Let's just say we're an eighth higher. The difference in the payment's $100 a month. He goes back to his clients and says, look, you're still saving X amount of dollars, but you use my guy, right? You don't have to move over $500,000. You get to keep it with me. I will make you an extra $100 a month for keep
Right.
staying here and not taking your money and taking it somewhere else. So he kind of sells for me. And it's probably one of the best relationships. I'm into this, I think this is my 19th or 20th year. And I going, oh my gosh, it took me this long to figure out that a financial advisor, you don't need many, you just need one who controls the whole market. And everyone in my area uses him. He manages billions of dollars. And I'm sitting here going, I really missed the boat on this, right? And so I do agree with you. Financial advisors are really, really good, especially because their clients, they're coming to them and saying, hey, I need 250 grand, I need 500,000. And this last run was crazy because a lot of them are taking money and paying cash for homes. And he's
That's
like,
right.
what are you doing? Don't, I need you to leverage. Go talk to Chris, hurry up. So FAMLOs, there's a nugget right there.
Yeah.
Financial
See,
advisors.
I should be interviewing you. That's a great story. That's a gigantic referral partner that,
Right.
that's a
Yeah.
big chunk there.
And
So
yeah,
congratulations.
and I talked to my staff about my team that works in our office here, and I'm like, look, it's really hard to get into financial advisors. You all of us have been at different companies. Grab your 401k rollover and go meet with them and say, look, I want to work with you. Tell me your strategy and interview them to manage your money. And if you think they're great people, then you'll slowly build a relationship, and they'll be like, and what do you do? You know what I mean? And then it just kind of works both ways.
I think you're exactly right. And it's kind of, back to the point of, smaller group going deeper, the
Yep.
shotgun approach isn't
Yeah,
going
I
to
mean,
work.
no financial advisors that are going to work with you if you're like, hey, come use me.
Right.
Bye. It's not going to work. You got to get that down. And same with CPAs too. All right, let's go into why do you think the realtors are coming back to you? What does Mike offer that no other LO offers? What is your pitch? What is your stick? Why are they so glued to you?
Well, I mean, that,
You can
it's a
brag.
good, yeah, no. I think my value proposition, it hasn't changed much. I mean, I've always kind of positioned myself as a problem solver. I just, that's kind of all I talked about. I kind of thought, if I just explain, hey, I can help people, talk through retirement. I can help people talk through, vacation homes or non-owner occupied or other, I've been around long enough. I've got enough experience. I can kind of talk, but that wasn't enough. It wasn't until I took that and really, um, again, convinced my realtor partners that I had a vested interest in their business. That's what moved the needle for me. So they always knew that I kind of did I did things maybe a little differently than the average loan officer. But again, that it wasn't enough. It wasn't until, I really started, really, and it comes down to time. I mean, from a practical standpoint, what have I changed? Well, the mindset part, yeah. And then it was setting time every single day. And I carve out time every day, and I'm making calls. And now it's gotten to the point where, I've got, I probably have 8 realtors that I would say call me 3 or 4 times a week for, do you know a good butcher? I mean, it's like now, so that's when,
So you're the expert.
the relationship has changed to a friendship. They're reaching out, they're calling me for things unrelated to the mortgage business.
So do they also sell for you, other people too? So when there's a situation where one of their colleagues is in having a trouble with the lender, they're like, oh, you got to call Mike. He's amazing. Do you get that?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're starting to get there. And that core group that I really focused on, 2.5 years ago, that has now grown, and it's grown from them. It hasn't grown from me with my target list. Okay, these are the top 25 in my area, and I'm just going to go after them. I had very little success doing that. I just started, I kind of went back to ground zero, starting with the group that I know, that have done deals with me, that I know I like, and then just nurtured those
so they're like
relationships at a much really just spending more and more time with that group. And then that led to, folks that they work with. And it's kind of, I mean, it's as simple as it sounds. And it really is pretty simple. But I'm sure there's folks, listening that maybe we're kind of doing business exactly how I was. And you're just kind of shotgunning to too many agents instead of just kind of focusing on the group that know and like you now, and just it's going to take time, but it will work.
Yeah. No, so I think your approach is this, if I can break it down for you, is you got your group, you're all in, you're committed, they're committed to you. And as they grow, you're getting more business, obviously, but they're also a free sales force. They're telling everyone about you. And so it's kind of like, hey, great. I don't really have to pick up the phone and cold call or shotgun. I just got to dive deeper. And then at one point, you're going to get to the relationship where you can come back to them, a little bit of salesy, but you're going to say, hey, who in your office do you think I'd be a good fit for? Right.
And you can do that. I can do that now without feeling awkward.
Right.
Because I've developed a friendship relationship. We've been through some deals together. They've seen, you got to have the basics. You got to have, you got to be able to pull deals off. You got to be able to, close on time and all that stuff. But to me, that's ground zero. That gets you to
walking
the
in
dance,
and say I have low rates and I'm going to close on time. No one gives a crap. They don't care. Everyone can do that.
No, and I think that's becoming more commonplace. So it's really kind of having that as your backdrop, making sure that you're taking care of people. And if you've got a team supporting behind you, you free up your time to where you can take their calls, where you can, just spend more time with those referral partners. And, that's kind of been the magic, has been the time spent.
Dive deep. All right. Do you listen to any mortgage podcast? Do you follow anyone? What's your daily routine? Like, how do you absorb mortgage? Like, a lot of people I know are like, they come in, it's Groundhog's Day every day, same thing. Me personally, I'm always following people, listening to podcasts, watching interviews of top producers, teams, and listening to, okay, how are they getting better? Now, look, I know I can't mimic these guys doing that much volume, but I know I could get a little bit better. And I take one little thing here and I go, okay, maybe I can implement this in my business. And then it doesn't work. I'm like, all right, scrap it, moving on to the next thing. I mean, what are you doing? Following, coaching? Talk to me.
Yeah. So I've been in coaching really for the last 3 years. I'm religious about watching Barry Habib every morning and getting that daily dose from him. I've been listening to him and following him for years. That is huge. And then Dave Savage, the mortgage coach, he does some. First of all, mortgage coach, that alone, the total cost analysis, we have access to it. I think most of the mortgage advisors and FAM have access to mortgage coach. That's just an unbelievable tool. With the video component, particularly during COVID, has been huge. But Dave also regularly interviews top producers, and it's great. That mortgage coach community is awesome. Yep. And you listen to, he does like 30-minute interviews, kind of like what we're doing now. He kind of just, how are you doing this? How are you doing this? And everyone's got a slightly different recipe, but you listen to enough, you kind of figure out, it's essentially what I did. It was like, I figured out, hey, what I'm doing really isn't working. Yeah. I've got to listen. So those are kind of the two big sources for me. Barry B kind of on the technical side, being just sharpening my skills on knowledge, and then Dave Savage and mortgage coach, his interviews, just figuring out what other top producers are doing to build their 100%. Business.
Yeah, I listen to both of them as well. I watched the David Savage interviews, and some of them I'm like, okay, great. Some of them I go, doesn't apply to us, right?
Right.
It really depends on the scenario, where they're at, where their market is, and some of them what's so funny is some of them I disagree with. One of his biggest clients, I'm not going to say his name, but he's on there all the time. And he literally, at the end of his transaction, sends them a letter or like a form. It says, can you give me 5 people's names and numbers to reach out to so I can call them? And I'm like, I would never do that, right? It's just that's totally not comfortable for me. But this person is super successful, and that's what he does. And I'm like, all right, so those they're great to listen to. Some of them you want to implement, some
Yeah,
of them you're like, I'm not comfortable with that.
yeah.
So
Eat the meat and toss
definitely.
out the bones.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's switch gears. What's the biggest challenge, pain that you're facing today in our market? Could be with loan process, it could be with whatever. What is your biggest hurdle that you're facing daily?
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like I'm hitting on all cylinders, probably better than ever. It's like, I've got a team that I love. They're sharp, they're committed, they communicate well with me. I feel like I can go out into the marketplace and make promises and have them delivered. So really for me, it's how do I spend more of my day in lead generating activities, which I've come to really love and enjoy, which, years ago I would kind of dread. Now that, I'm in a little bit different mode. It's that my biggest challenge is how do I stay out of my files? So if I can stay out of my files, that just frees up my time.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I started 2 years ago, because I was trying to solve this problem, and I was time blocking, in my calendar. I've got this 2-hour time block. This is going to be lead generation time, and I routinely would interrupt that. I missed it, and then the day would go by, and next thing you know, it's Friday, and it was a disaster. So 2 years ago, with the help of my coach, a very, very simple tactic. This is not going to be earth shattering, but every Monday morning I come in, the first thing I do is I get a piece of paper out and I draw a column 1 through 20 agents, referral partners, and 1 through 20 current and past clients. And I will not go home Friday unless I have made 20 calls in each column, period.
Wow.
And it's got to be, it can't be the same realtor 5 times. It's got to unique names. And I keep
You got to show us.
See, I've got
down.
I've got 9. I've got 9 left. But that, and it sounds, 40. It sounds easy. My average call might be 15 minutes. That's 10 hours of calls during the week. So, I'm going to stick to this until I hit 40 a week for 6 months. And if I miss a month, but if I can increase that 40 to 50, that's gonna change. I guarantee, and maybe your number's not 40, whatever. Pick a number and tell yourself you are not going home Friday until you make those calls.
Wow.
And it will, that as simple as that tactic is, it's helped quite a bit.
So how many on Fridays are you making out of those?
I generally try to, I
I
covet my Fridays. I love my Friday afternoons. I'll either go for a long run or, now that the weather's getting nice, I'll go out and play golf or go hang out with my kids, play soccer. So I really covet my Friday afternoons and then maybe a happy hour. I'm not going to let myself go. So I really try to knock that out by Thursday. So this is my afternoon. I'm not going to check email. I'm not going to answer. I've already got texts and calls from my team. I'm not answering any of that until I get my 9 calls out. That'll free up my tomorrow.
I like it. That's good. That's commitment, right? You're committed and you're holding yourself accountable. I don't know if I can do that.
It's simple and it's something I can control, and it has a very specific number, and it's starting to work.
Perfect. All right, we're almost reaching our time limit here. So one question, ask me anything. I'll give you the best advice, how I can fix it or whatever. What do you got? What do you have for me? What one thing that you could think of?
Wow. Well, looking at, and I'm humble because there are a ton of producers ahead of me on the leaderboard, and you're the kingpin. It's intimidating when you feel like, okay, I'm not working, 15-hour week. I'm putting in a full week. How do I mentally get to where I can envision, honestly, doing 125 million? It might not be next year or 2 years, but at some point, you know, how do I get into my head that, doubling from 63 to 125 is doable?
It is. It's organic growth. I didn't just land on the leaderboard, right? And it's for you, you're already there. You hired a part-time, you hired another part-time. Okay. Now the goal is to get them to be full-time. And then once you got, so basically you have a team of 3. Well, they're going to be staring at you every day looking for work. What's that going to do? That's going to motivate you to do more, right? The biggest thing for me is I just add another body. And then every time I have a body staring at me, I'm like, okay, I got to get on the phone. I got to do something because I got to go get a loan today because someone's staring at me that I hired and I got to pay them hourly and they're counting on me to make their mortgage payment. So for me, that's motivation number 1. And you're there, you're getting there, but you don't, like I said, it's organic growth. It's one transaction at a time. You close that deal and you do a really good job. They refer you 3 people. You do a really good job. They refer you and it just keeps snowballing, right? And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I didn't wake up and do $100 million. That's just not true, right? I was just like you. I did 60 million for like 5 years in a row and I just couldn't break it. And then I hired another person and I added to something else. And I was a major control freak and I worked 15-hour days. And I was like, this is stupid, right? I could do more without doing more. And for me was I still am in my files. Don't get me wrong. I'm there, but I'm not inputting them and running credit and doing that. I'm overseeing them, viewing them. And I've taken technology, mortgage coach. I have my own iPad now. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah.
Everything I do, I put on this iPad. I do full interviews with my clients, write it on the iPad. I have my notes, it goes to the team. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm so much more efficient than using a yellow piece of paper. And then I go, hey, the Mr. Smith, where's this one? You know what I mean? I'm just getting more efficient. And that's all you got to do, right? More efficient gives you more time to free up, more time to prospect. But also your prospecting is already doing it for yourself because as you're closing these deals, they're telling your people around you. Right. At this point, I have not had to make an outbound sales call in 3 years. I haven't had to pick up a phone and hustle a realtor or a client ever. I'm just more about filtering what comes in and taking care of them and giving them really, really good service. So I think you're on your way. I think if you can hit 72, 80 million this year, you have 3-time full staff members. The following year, 100, 110 is realistic for you, truly. So I think that's what you got to do. And then the one thing that I also do is I look back and I go, what did I waste my time on? What did I hate doing? And every time I sit down and go, okay, I hated inputting my own mortgage coach and doing all that stuff. So I have someone that works with me, does a lot of my work. Well, I train them how to use mortgage coach. I just send them an email and say 500, 600, 700, 800, I need you to put it in, build it for me, send it back to me so I can just send it out, right? Those are the things where I would spend 15, 20 minutes building my mortgage coach, going over the stuff. And I'm like, wait, someone else could do this for me. They just need to know the numbers. And so that was one thing I took off my plate. There's a lot of little things I took off my plate, but that's what you need to do is make a list at the end of the week, go, what sucked up your time that you could delegate and move on to someone else that could do it. And they'll probably do it better than us too, right? Eventually, because they get really good at it and you're like, wow, that's better than what I would have came up with. So that's my advice for you.
Thank you.
Yep. So every interview, I always leave our Finance America loan officers, advisors, a tip. And this one came across my desk the other day was Airbnb VRBO income. Can you use it? And the answer is yes. Here's how. Fannie, Freddie, Jumbo World, Redwood, and CIT allow it as long as it's on your Schedule E for 1 year. They're not going to ask you for lease agreements. So they don't actually even know if it's Airbnb or short-term rental. They're just going to go off the Schedule E. So it is doable. I have a lot of clients now that have bought properties, especially Lake Arrowhead, Big Bear, and they've been renting them out for the last couple of years. And I need that income, right? When they're going to buy something else. And a lot of times they're like, oh, it's short-term rentals. And I'm like, we're great. As long as you show it on your Schedule E, it's been on there for 365 days. We don't need an updated lease agreement. we're fine. And so that's a big tip. A lot of people don't know that. When the client says, hey, I have Airbnb income, they say, we can't use it. And I'm like, time out, send me your tax returns, let me look at it.
That is a great tip.
Yeah. And yeah, we got a couple of those going on right now. So anything else you can think of? Any tips that you want to give them?
No, I mean, again, I'm humbled. I appreciate, I appreciate the time, and yeah, I hope, I hope if nothing else, I've encouraged someone that is maybe kind of stuck in a rut to pursue and push through.
Perfect. All right. Well, FAM Advisors, this is Funding Billions with Finolio. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. We have another awesome interview lined up. Thanks again for jumping on and listening to us.